think if we are to understand it well, it would be helpful if I gave a little bit of an introduction to it. It comes from the 4th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, and you know what's in chapters 1 and 2, because it's all about the birth of Jesus. Now, it's St. Luke who gives us the story of shepherds. Matthew is the one who gives us the story of the Magi, who come bringing gifts that recognize, even right after his birth, the uniqueness of Jesus, that even as a baby, he can be seen to be someone who is truly going to bring the Word of God, the new world, the new age of justice, peace, reconciliation, goodness into the world. But there's also bad news at that moment, as you know from the story, because the Magi run into Herod. Herod, who is not really interested in the good of his kingdom, he's only interested in the good of himself. He styles himself Herod the Great. I'm the greatest king that has ever ruled over Israel. And he lies all the time in order to try to keep his power. Well, he doesn't like the idea that the Magi are talking about this newborn king of the Jews, so he lies to them. He says, as you remember from the story on Epiphany, he says to them, go find where the child is so that I can go and worship him. When, of course, as you know, he wanted to destroy him. The Magi aren't that dumb. They know what Herod's up to. Of course, they're helped by a message of an angel in that. They go home by a different route. Herod is so enraged that he ends up killing all of the male children in Bethlehem. But before he's able to catch them, as you know, Mary and Joseph take the child and flee into Egypt. So already there, at the very beginning, there is this conflict between good and evil, between what is hoped for, the new world of peace, justice, reconciliation, goodness, forgiveness, love, comes crashing right into the representative of the world of hatred, of lies, of violence, of deception. After Herod dies, Mary and Joseph feel they can bring the child back to Israel, but Herod's son is almost as bad as he is, so they stay away from Jerusalem. They skirt around Bethlehem, which is a suburb of Jerusalem, make their way up out into the sticks, up into the Galilee, to their original home of Nazareth. We don't know from Matthew how long they stayed there. Luke tells us that Jesus spent the first 30 years of his life there. And Luke also tells us that during that time, he grew in wisdom and in understanding. And that's a very important line. You and I believe that Jesus is truly the Son of God, God in the flesh. You and I also believe that Jesus is truly and completely human as you and I are. And therefore, as a human being, as a child, a youngster, an adolescent, he needed, as Luke says, to grow in wisdom and understanding. He needed to grow in understanding who he was, what exactly it was that God the Father wanted him to do, wanted him to fulfill. It was only as he reached the point of 30 that he started really feeling ready to be able to go out to do that. So he heard of his cousin, John the Baptist, down at the Jordan River doing baptisms. He went down to see if that would help him come to an understanding of who he was and what he was to do. As you know, when John saw him coming, he pointed right at him and said, and we use these words right before communion. Do you remember what it was that he said, pointing at Jesus?
Lamb of God.
This is the Lamb of God. Thank you. Yes. This is the one who takes away the sins of the world. Not only that, but after Jesus goes into the water with John and comes up from it, another voice is heard, the voice of God the Father, who says, thank you, yes, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. So at this point, it's confirmed for Jesus. He is indeed Messiah. He is indeed the one who is to bring about the new kingdom of God. And he could have, at that point, done something that many of us might have been tempted to do. He could have jumped out of the water and said, "Here I am. Aren't you all lucky to be around? I'm the one. I'm the Messiah. I'm the King." But that's not who Jesus is. That's not the gentleness in which he seeks to save us. Instead, coming up out of the water, he goes into the desert for 40 days, as we'll be reading about in a few weeks when we come into Lent. There, he has to deal with temptations. Temptations to do that very thing. Temptations to try to bring about God's kingdom through power plays, through violence. He hears so clearly the Father's voice. That is not the way in which it is to be done. And so, having overcome those temptations, Jesus comes out of the desert, starts looking again for John to reconnect with him, but finds out that once again, evil has come into conflict with the good, and John has been arrested. That leads us into the gospel passage that we read now. May we stand and sing our gospel.